Hail and hello, everyone. Welcome to the Random Heathen Ramblings podcast, a Midgard Musings production. Join me, Jesse, your host, as we discuss random heathen related topics and various other things in an attempt to find where, if any, heathen worldviews can be applied. You can support this podcast by clicking on the Linktree link in the description or show notes. You can also follow me on all of my social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and become a patron on Patreon. Join me every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central on all major podcast streaming platforms, including Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and many, many more. If you wish to have your voice heard on the Random Heathen Ramblings podcast, you can dial in to 615 671 9832. Thank you all once again for listening to the Random Heathen Ramblings podcast. Enjoy and hail to you all.
All right, folks. Hail and welcome back to the Random Heathen Ramblings podcast, a Midgard Musings production. Hope you guys are having a great week and enjoying this extreme heat wave. Yeah, I'm not enjoying it at all, one bit. The day that this podcast was recorded, it broke triple digits as far as the heat index goes. And we shall see what it's like when this podcast airs, because they're projecting it to just keep on climbing. So when I say I hope you're enjoying the heat, what I mean by that is I hope you're enjoying staying out of the heat and that you're able to have some comfortable, cool temperatures to chill out in. This is the time of year where I am the most thankful to not have a warehouse job or a job where I'm like out in the elements all day, because this stuff is brutal and it's very, very dangerous. So be sure, if you are having to be outdoors and whatever it is that you do, that you're being safe, staying hydrated, protecting and covering up. The sun will get you, man. It'll get you bad. That, you know, don't neglect the things that you need to neglect, but at the same time, be smart about it. So we are back again. About to light this incense as we have become accustomed to do here. I went really woodsy this week. We've got pine and we've got cedar. These are scents or aromas that are always like my favorite. You know, reminds me of the north where I'm from, and reminds me of winter and those cold months. They're my favorite times of the year. So, you know, the piney kind of types of incense and resins and stuff are like my favorite. So anyway, we got pine and cedar today. Maybe if we burn those, we'll invoke some, or evoke, I guess is whichever one it is. We'll get some cooler temperatures. I doubt it. That's not really the way this works, but I think we're in it for the long haul, ladies and gentlemen, as far as the heat and all that goes. It's interesting. I noticed this one doesn't produce as much clouds, or smoke, I should say. They're not clouds, they're smoke, which is fine. It still smells good. Yeah, baby. Smells like a piney campfire, man. It smells like our vey. Wow. Flashbacks. Our vey, meaning like the sacred space that our tribe conducts our, you know, rituals and stuff in. It's all like cedars and junipers. And we burn a lot of it. We burn a lot of the deadfall that comes down and is the fuel for our ritual fires. So I guess it's the cedar and the piney aromas that are really triggering some nostalgia in me. You guys have anything like that? You guys have any like aromas, tastes, sights, of course, but little things like that that trigger a memory, sometimes maybe they're good memories, sometimes maybe they're, not so good memories. I hope they're good memories for you. I remember for the longest time, the aroma of Jim Beam triggered some horrible memories of my my young and crazy days where I would drink an excessive amount and get blackout drunk and then not even know where I was the next day or whatever. Those are not some very fond memories. Those are reminders of a time past that you learn from. So maybe we all have some things that, even though they're not the most pleasant of memories, they are reminders of kind of where we come from, and where not to go back to. So that's it. That's today's podcast. That just lit some incense and told you to have happy memories from smells. No, I'm just kidding. We're not ending it on that note. As a matter of fact, we have a good episode to go into today because we're going to cover a couple of topics, I think. Two good topics, one of which I've kind of touched on before, but I didn't want to go without acknowledging the recommendation from a supporter, viewer, subscriber, a friend of Midgard Musings and of the podcast. And as you guys are out here listening, watching, however you capture this, and be sure to check the Linktree link that I posted in the description and show notes of every podcast. These things are done as a labor of love, and I've said this many times before. So if you'd ever feel so inclined to want to, toss a coin to your witcher or pay the piper, Patreon is a great way to do it. You can do that for as little as $1 a month. It's a recurring monthly subscription thing. It doesn't get you any special perks, but you do get to know that you're helping support my time that I spend doing these things. So they are labors of love, and I don't need the money to do any of this because I will do this no matter what. But it is nice to know that people have your back and want to see you, value the time that is spent, because this is time. This is time that I could be spent doing other things. What I don't know yet, because this is what I've got my time spent. My extracurricular time. Speaking of extracurricular activities and things outside of the normal work life, home life, what have you, don't forget this Saturday in Springfield, Tennessee, the Raven Moonhearth Kindred is hosting their annual Sunablot event. This information for that is going to be shared also in the description and show notes. I've talked about it before, and I will be there. I will be there in a very similar ensemble as you see me in now, casting runes, reading runes for a nominal fee. It is going to be a hot one. So I probably won't be dressed hooded for the entire duration of the event. That would be ludicrous. I will be dressed in somewhat traditional garb, trying to get into the spirit of it, but a summertime garb, I'm trying to keep and keep comfortable. But I'll be outside and burning incense, burning resin, having the runes available to be read for you. So consider coming out this Saturday. Day passes are $20. If you're staying overnight to camp, it's $25, which includes your meal for the next day that is provided by Raven Moonhearth. They're going to be cooking or grilling or doing something with food and stuff there, providing for their guests and attendees, which is a really awesome gesture, and looking really forward to it. With all the crazy heat that we're having going on here lately, the projection for Saturday's temperatures is actually going to be a cool 87 to 89 degrees, which in comparison to, the upper 90s and 100-degree triple digits, that is a significantly lower temperature. So maybe we'll have some cloud cover. Maybe we'll have some nice breezes, but regardless, it is a celebration of the sun. It is, in fact, Sunablot. So we will be celebrating the wonder, the life-giving energy of Suna. And it is on the weekend leading up to the summer solstice, which means the days coming after this next coming weekend will progressively start to get longer. So we will bloat to Suna and thank her for the blessings of the heat and of the sun and of the life-giving rays, and send her on her warm way as we anticipate and prepare for the dark days ahead. So what else? Yeah, before we get into the topic of today's discussion, I figured I'd just give you guys some updates on things. I've been posting a lot of stuff on the YouTube channel that is very much outside of the normal stuff that I even started Midgard Musings for. If you guys are subscribers to the channel, you've probably noticed there's been a lot more instrumental type stuff, shamanic drumming, rattles, collaborations with Jay Mollison over at Fjallvetir workshop, as well as some little short videos, updates on just things that I've had on my mind as I've been doing these barefoot nature walks. And it's been a really interesting time, and today's or I should say Tuesday's update, it's extremely hot. So if you're going to be outdoors, if you're going to be going to do anything in nature, whether it be hikes, walks, working, what have you, be mindful of how much energy you're exerting, and be hydrated and all that fun stuff. But all I do is I just go on these walks, and most of my walking path, trajectory, whatever, is in grass, and it's mowed grass, so it's not too terribly precarious. And aside from stepping on a few rocks here and there or whatever, I don't have I don't have hobbit feet. My soles, the soles of my feet are far from built up or callous enough, but I'm doing these like every day, and trying to just get more of that energy from the earth, getting my bare skin, my bare feet touching, grounding into the earth. And when I mean grounding, I mean like really digging in, like walking along the creek banks, the river banks where it's muddy and stuff, and getting your feet dirty, getting it in there, man. And I've actually, now that, we've got a bunch of rain here in Middle Tennessee, and it flooded the river. And it was, a raging river there for a while, real dirty. But it's been several days since it rained last, and the water's come back down. So it's a much more typical water levels, and it's great to just get out there and walk and wade through the water. And let me tell you, doing that barefoot, I did this with Patrick, my tribesman and law speaker. He spent some time with me over this past weekend to do some crafting and stuff for some tribal items of ours, or one main tribal item of ours, something that he contributed to artistically. But he came over and we went for a walk, and then we, waded through the river ourselves. And I was telling him afterwards, I was like, it's not that you're like exerting a lot of physical energy to walk through the river that you can really feel, but when you're barefoot and when you're, carefully placing your feet on things the way you don't, slip on a slippery rock or step on a, something that's jagged or could potentially harm you. Like your senses are so heightened, your adrenaline's pumping, you don't want to slip and fall and all these kinds of things that, I don't know, it heightens all of those senses, and it energizes you even more. So it's super invigorating, man. And so I did that today, where I went down to the river banks, and just waded out into the water, up to about my knee depth or so. Sat out there for a little bit on this like little island, as it were, little dry spot of land that kind of cuts in between a section where the river breaks away, and just sat out there and listened to the water. Just sat on the bare ground, walked on the bare ground with my bare feet. And I posted an update about the thought that I had was how adversity, how tough times, how things can really shape us as human beings, as individuals, and that we can prepare for those things in some sort of way. We can do things that in a way condition us for the tough times ahead. Like I said, that steel is hardened by being passed through fire. or iron is tested, as it passes through fire. And adversity is the thing that breeds worth in all of us. And when those hard times come, when you're faced with things that can really challenge your faith, even your resolve in life, not just your religious views, but your spiritual views. I've heard so many things from people losing their faith entirely to challenging their faith and challenging their deity or deities, feeling that the sacred have abandoned them in some way because of being disheartened or being discouraged. And I don't know, it got me thinking, I'm out here walking around. It's like 100 degrees outside, and I'm barefooted, walking through the river, walking through the woods, through the trails, leading up to the riverbanks, taking that risk, taking that chance of stepping on something, or just anyway, like the risk, the benefits outweigh the risk to me, and being careful, being mindful, and that sort of stuff. But doing the thing, getting hot, feeling that sun beat on me and cause me to sweat and just be uncomfortable, and walking through the river and feeling the sharp rocks touch my feet, slipping a little bit, trying to catch my balance, and just doing those things where an average person might be like looking at you sideways going, what are you doing? I'm like, this is as much of a healing thing as it is for me a preparatory thing. I'm preparing myself, I'm conditioning myself, I'm passing myself through the fire, as it were, to whatever extent. And I'm not saying that walking around in the sun is a trial by fire, although in these temperatures it can be. But what I am saying is that do something that challenges you, that pushes you to your limit. And then when you reach that limit, maybe push a little bit beyond. Don't be stupid. Don't be reckless. Don't be an idiot. But try those things. And wouldn't you know it, I posted it, and I see a comment on one of my posts from a guy, David T. Bosquez. He's written a lot of poetry for Matt Petrie at Odin's Beard Woodworking, and he's been featured on the channel once before in a live. We had like a big room, a virtual room where everybody kind of joined in on a Zoom, and we streamed live for a bit. But yeah, he posted a comment. He's like, yeah, I would, but it's like in the 90s here. And I said, well, I mean, I was outside and it was like 100 degrees, and I did this. And his response was, okay, I'll do it, but I'm not going to like it. I'm going to complain, all the way. And I was like, hey, nobody told you in a direct way. I mean, I kind of made I guess a general statement of, hey, go out there and push yourself. Go push yourself to your limits. But he took that as a challenge, or he took that as a call to action, and he did it. He posted a little video, tagged me in it, and I'm like, isn't that great? Isn't that great to see that something that we say, something that we do, it's not just saying it, it's like showing it as an example. It's like, I can sit here and talk to you about how great drinking scotch is, and if I'm never sitting here with a glass in my hand drinking it, then you might question what the hell I'm even talking about, right? But when I can sit here and describe the flavors, the notes, what you get on the nose, what the back end flavors are, and all this, it's like, oh, okay, well, now that he's doing the thing, and so it's same kind of way. And I just use that as an example because it's literally the front thing in front of my face that I'm staring at. But instead of being like, yeah, you guys should do this because I think it's a good idea and it's scientifically proven and whatever, I'm out here doing it and I'm feeling it myself. And I'm like, why not share this with people? Why not share this with folks to give them some inspiration? And the inspiration may be happening unbeknownst to me. I mean, there may be people out here that take what I say and, find inspiration in it, and don't post about it. And that's great. I mean, nobody's telling you to, it's your prerogative. But the fact that, David did that was really touching, so David, thank you for David, Tyler. We're in the South. I can't remember which it is, but you are. Mr. Vasquez, thank you for your gesture of and good on you, man. Like, good on you for being for feeling that motivation, and being motivated to go out and do something, and that's where it starts, wherever you are, wherever you're at, no matter what it is. If you're not where you want to be, then the only way to get to where you want to be is to take that first step. You know, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm also not where I was, you know, about a week and a half ago. Well, heck, I wasn't even where I was a week ago, you know, as far as like my weight, my health, my mental health, my just everything. You know, I want to achieve a goal, and keeping your eye on the prize, focusing on that, being dedicated, being disciplined enough to do that. You know, this is a great way of honoring our ancestors, because it took that very thing. It took those types of things for our ancestors to survive. You know, it took motivation, it took dedication, it took discipline. And so when we do these things, you know, we're not just healing ourselves. We're not just doing good for ourselves in the now. We are honoring our ancestors. We are doing things that honor their struggle and their legacy that they left behind. And we are feeding from the well, right? We are pulling up from the layers of Orlog, the primal layers of luck that have been left down for us. And we're using that to grow our own luck and to add more layers to the well. And then for our descendants down the road, when we become ancestors, for them to pull strength from. So you see, it's very holistic, and it's a wonderful thing to be a part of. So if you haven't yet, you know, and you're wondering what the heck we're talking about, just take a moment. It doesn't have to be a very long walk, but just get outside and put your feet in the ground, put your feet in the grass, put your feet in the dirt, get dirty, get sweaty, you know, and feel what it's like to exert some energy and then push yourself past your comfort zone. We are amazing creatures, human beings. We are capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. But all right, that's enough of the inspirational woo-woo type stuff. Maybe not even woo-woo, but it's move on to the topic of discussion for today, or topics of discussion for today. So the first one is going to be on a post that I made some weeks ago. And it was, you know, like a call to folks, hey, you know, what do you want me to talk about here on the podcast? Or what are some things that we could talk about? What are some things that we could ramble on about? And we got some really great suggestions. And one of them is from Cory T. I'll just, for the sake of, you know, people's identities and keeping people safe, we'll just say Cory T. So Cory wants us to talk about the topic of dealing with relatives or friends asking us to participate in something which is mainly considered a secular thing. So for instance, he's talking about being asked to be a godparent or standing in a wedding. And he says chaplain in a hospital. So I think that what I'm understanding, at least from the nature of the question or the nature of the statement, is to talk about how do we deal with these things that are mainly secular, that are not religious, that don't necessarily have any religious or spiritual backgrounds. And, you know, I've even talked on this podcast enough, or if they are religious, that they are something separate from heathenry, from pagan practices, pagan religious practices, you know. And I've talked about this on this podcast before, with the challenges that we can face of dealing with family members and friends that are of opposing beliefs. I have very close friends and people that I would consider brother, you know, to me, kin to me, of opposing religious beliefs. And it's never been a thing that has stopped us from developing a deep and rooted bond with each other. The religion is not the thing that prevents people from having meaningful relationships. Because if it were, I wouldn't have half the friends that I've had and still have. So I've talked about that. You know, I've talked about dealing with spouses or being in relationships with people of opposing religions or doing things like that. So this seems a much like, and those are some pretty, delicate and even challenging scenarios to navigate through, right? Because of so many variables that can take place and all of those types of things. This seems to be a very rudimentary, easier response, just based on the fact that we're talking about things that are secular. They are what they are, regardless of your religion and regardless of what your beliefs and all that are. So let's just use some examples, right? Now, the godparent thing, that is a religious, or at least has its connotations, roots, or maybe not roots, but you're not gonna ask somebody to be a godparent to someone unless you are intertwined somehow into the Catholic faith. At least not so much as I've heard. I could be wrong with that, but I think that being godparents is a strictly Catholic thing. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it's, for some reason, it sticks in my mind that it's just a Catholic thing. So I don't know, let's say I had, and I'll just use myself as an example, and then you guys can assimilate, however you want to about it with your own beliefs or your own approach to things. But if I were to be asked by somebody of my family, and I don't have any family that are Catholics, but if I did, and there was a request of me to be that child's godparent, first of all, you're gonna ask me to be a godfather, then I'm gonna swell my lip out like this, and I'm gonna tell you, you've just made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. Not gonna do that, but I would look at the gesture. I would consider the gesture as being something of a very something very meaningful, right? You don't just wake up one morning, look through your Facebook feed or swipe on a social media app and be like, all right, who do I want to be my godfather today, right? Like, that's a really important position to carry. So that's an important responsibility, and it carries with it, I think, senses of obligation. But I think that because of the importance behind it, I would feel very honored, and I would just want to know, I guess, without knowing the specifics behind it. I mean, is it just, I'm your legal guardian? I mean, what are some of the quote unquote requirements? I mean, am I going to have to do anything specific? Like, I get, I would consider that. And as long as it doesn't do anything to damage my experience with my religion, right? How I experience life with the gods and the Vatir and my ancestors and all that, then for sure I would accept. I mean, it doesn't hurt. If anything, it allows us to, especially for something like this, right? I mean, be the godparent of somebody's child. Adoption was a very commonplace thing in Germanic society in pre-Christian times, and it's been a very obviously common thing in many cultures. It's not just isolated to Germanic culture, but adoption was a thing that, when you were adopted into a family, you were a part of that family. You became part of that family. That was your family, and all of the luck and all of the things that family benefited from now became available to you through, again, this whole thing we talked about before, the concept of Weird and Orlag and all these things. So in that way, to be asked to be someone's godparent, I would consider that in my acceptance or decline of the offer, right? Because who am I tying myself to? What am I bonding myself with? Who am I bonding myself with? How is it going to, perpetuate and extend and manifest well for my luck? So there's that thing to consider. But it doesn't, something like that wouldn't be a thing that harms or hurts, not that I know of anyway, your experience and your relationship with the gods. You know what I mean? Because first of all, the gods aren't going to be up there being like, oh no, Jesse's over here, becoming the godparent. Oh, that's a Christian thing. We don't like him now. They don't care. You know what I mean? And they're the ones that people seem to be cared about the most. What are the gods going to say? Are they going to be mad at me? Am I betraying the gods? Are they going to, withdraw themselves from my life and these sorts of things? The Vatir and our ancestors, and those are the spiritual relationships that we have, of the beings that exist near and around us. That's what I'm more concerned about. What am I going to do that's going to be good for my relationships with them, since I share space with them? The gods are on their level, and yes, I do things with myself and with my tribe to get the gods' attention, to appease the gods, or to appeal to the gods, even in times when it is appropriate. But being someone's godparent doesn't hurt my relationship with the gods in that sort of way. I think, if anything, limiting myself to reasons of not accepting it because it's not a heathen thing, it's a Christian thing, or it's a Catholic thing. If I were to limit myself based on that and not look at the overall picture, then I think I would be doing more damage by not becoming a godparent to somebody if the situation called for it, and it was right and it was good for the situation, for all parties involved. And some of the other examples that Cory gives, right? Standing in a wedding. He says chaplain in a hospital. I'm assuming, maybe funerals can also be tossed into there. Baptisms. I'm going to throw baptisms in there because that is a very specific religious experience, that is a very specific ritual of the Christian religion. And I do say ritual because it is a ritual. I had the opportunity to attend my niece's baptism a couple of months ago. And yeah, I went to church, and guess what? I didn't burst into flames, and the Christians there didn't try to burn me, at the stake. They didn't try to throw me out, whatever. They didn't try to kill me there at the altar. It was it was really nice. It was a nice experience to be a part of, and just seeing actually learn some things. You know what I mean? Like, you can learn something. You can learn anything from anywhere. It's wisdom is wisdom regardless of where it comes from. And the reason I did it is because of the amount of connection that I have with my niece through my wife, and how much of a bond I've established with my niece. She's not going to remember her own baptism because she's less than a year old, right? But she's going to have video. She's going to have a memory. She's going to have something to look back on, pictures of herself as an infant, right? Later on down the line, she's going to have pictures of that. And she's going to see pictures with her aunt and her uncle, my wife and I. And, she's not going to see pictures with other people who weren't there, that were or should have been there, And when I think about the impact that has, when I think about what it means to somebody to know that they had a person in their life that cared enough for them from such a young age, to want to be there, to be a positive presence and a positive influence in their life, that is some really strong luck to lay down, boy. That is some really strong, it goes into your frame, your reputation. I think it goes into a lot of things. Your main, the might, the kind of the power that you have that gets built on over time and through certain deeds and through certain actions. It's leveling up, man. Like, right. So, standing in a wedding, you've been asked by someone, of whether it's the groom or the bride, you've been asked someone on their very, very special and important day to be not just an attendee, but to be an honored member of their wedding party, right? And to stand with them at their wedding, So I think every situation is different. You know what I mean? Sometimes a situation might be like, hey, this is a totally irrational thing to be doing. This is not a cause for celebration. I 100% do not support this. I don't think that stuff like that, those situations don't, or they might have, religious purpose and reasoning behind the decision making. But be careful of it. I think, be aware that that sort of thing can perhaps cloud your vision and keep you from thinking rationally and logically if all you're thinking about is the gods and stuff that aren't here present with us. If you want to think about anything, is what would how well does this reflect on my luck, and how well does this reflect on my ancestors, and what would they would they be pleased? Am I honoring their legacy? That sort of thing. Those are honestly a lot of what I look at. It's not what my ancestors would think, because it's better to do things, whether it's right or wrong, than to not do things. So at some point in time, you're going to do things that your ancestors are going to be going, what did you just do? Right. But at least you did something. So I don't know. I think it's a mix of doing something that I know, or I think my ancestors would be proud of, and that I am honoring their life and their legacy. But also then that I'm doing is that, what am I doing now that's going to, set me up good later on, and add good luck to the well now. So I hope that that's where the question, or where the topic was meant to go, Cory. And if it wasn't, maybe feel free to DM me or shoot me an email, or call into the Midgard Musings hotline, 615-671-9832, in case I missed something, or in case but that's where I saw that comment coming from, and that's what I thought of when you wrote it. So I hope that answers it, and I hope that it's worth all your time to consider. The other topic that I did want to briefly touch on before we wrap this up, though, is another supporter, Luke H. So thank you, Luke, who says, is there such a thing as a gratitude bloat? How to say thank you to the gods rather than requesting things of them. And this one I thought was very interesting, because there's differences between bloat and what might be called a feigning or an offering. You know what I mean? Like there's significant differences to what those things are. But they are often just lumped into being the same thing. Oh, going to, I even said it on the podcast before, for Suna bloat, there's going to be bloat. There's going to be a bloat. I don't think that bloat is going to be done in the historically accurate sense. I don't think that there's going to be animal blood used in an animal sacrifice and that sort of thing for this event. It hasn't in the past, so I don't think so. So what makes a bloat is the presence of blood, and there's a whole debate on that amongst various heathens and such. But from what I understand, from what I know, from what I've researched, is that bloat in the historical sense was held to the gods at very specific times, for specific events, and for specific reasons, doing very specific things. Now, gifting to the gods, feignings, the offerings, that sort of thing, things that don't consist of animals. It could be libations, it could be smoke, fire, as a means of sending the gift and that sort of thing. Time, study, our time is valuable, right? So gifting of our time to achieve something, with no, well, not even to achieve it, but just to gift it, right? Here, I'm giving you my time, and you don't have to pay me back for it. It's a gift, whatever. These types of things are to be, that's really mostly where it's at, right? The bloat thing, like, yes, they are sacrifices to the gods to hope for better things, or to pray for those things, or, a bloat to victory, a bloat to, the gods for a good harvest, or for success and victory in battle, and all these other things. that we read about in the sagas and the sources. But just a feigning, a gift, an offering, that's more of what happens, I think, especially at like the hearth and individual home level, like hearth cult level, is those things are gestures of gratitude. Those things are gifts to say thank you for your presence in my life, thank you for my success in life, thank you for my home, thank you for my health, thank you for my children, thank you for my wealth, whatever it is, right? I mean, I think that most of the time, if we're talking about percentages or whatever, I think the percentage of time that people talk about giving to the gods, offering to the gods, bloat to the gods, is really just a gift to the gods to be thankful, right? For things, and to show that gratitude by pouring out some mead, some nice whiskey, burning a home cooked meal, or leaving fresh fruits and vegetables out to the vatir. Those are gifts. Those are gestures of that engage us in the gifting cycle, reciprocation, which is one of, if not the most important things about being pagan in a lot of different practices, but Germanic paganism, Nordic paganism especially, the gifting cycle, the gift exchange, reciprocity is a big part of our spirituality and religious practices, because a gift seeks a gift. We gift in thanks, we gift in hopes of returning or having that gift returned back to us. And that's what we understand it to be, is we do not enter into that exchange with any less than an expectation that something is going to come back to me. So yes, it is a way of asking for something, I think, or hoping for something, but it's also done, I think, mainly out of the heart of it all is to be thankful, be gracious, and show gratitude. So, as far as like the actual question goes, if I were to read that again, and he says, is there such a thing as gratitude bloat? That's a feigning, man. That's a gift. Bloat is for, again, very specific reasons at very specific times, doing very specific things. And one could say that was done in the spirit of gratitude, right? Out of thanks. Thank you, Odin, for giving us victory in the last raid. We now sacrifice this, whatever it was, to you for victory in the future. Thank you, Freyr, for the bountiful harvest of summer and allowing us to reap the fields in bounty. And now we are thankful, and we gift to you in our time of the harvest season, to bless our crops. So there's absolutely gratitude bloat, if you want to call it that, but I mean it's feigning, it's offering gifts to receive gifts in return. And then once you enter into that gifting cycle, it doesn't stop. You don't let it stop. It's a beautiful thing to be tuned into that, knowing that that's how the universe around us works. Reciprocity is it's cyclical, and we live on a freaking sphere in the middle of this vast emptiness of nothingness that is only growing exponentially into more nothingness. So the nothingness is expanding into more nothingness. Make sense of that. And here we are, making a ripple and making change, doing things, engaging with sacred beings and spirits around us, because that's what we are. We are sacred beings. We have that level of sacredness within us. We have that sacred and divine inspiration through the order. I think it is. It's order. Yeah, order. That sacred divine inspiration. That was one of the things that in the creation myth and Nordic paganism is, Odin, Vili, and Ve, in part three different things to mankind, and one of those things is that divine breath, that divine inspiration, the cognitive abilities and such. So yeah, absolutely there is. And the more you engage in it, now, I guess it's to be considered that, it's better not to gift much or anything than to gift, too often or too much. So there's a balance there. There's modesty there's, you got to be everything in moderation, right? But yeah, it's definitely a thing. There is such a thing as that, Luke, and then find that place, find that opportunity to do it. And there's nothing to be formal, I have gifted things randomly to people just because, and I've had things gifted randomly to me just because, and that's very refreshing. It's very nice, and it secures something, that first step, that step to just randomly gift to someone out of thanks. Hey, appreciate what you do. Here's something to show my gratitude. What does that do for you as a human being? What does that do for you as an individual, right? It really like wakes you up and go, wow, that made me feel really good. And I want to go do that for him or her or them, or and keep that thing going. Because if it made me feel good, it's going to make them feel good. Same kind of thing, Yes, the gods are the gods, and they are sacred and they are divine, and yet they have made themselves accessible to us, and when we do certain things, no matter whether we are in the profane and they are in the sacred realms, when we connect and when we're able to share moments with each other, I can't help but think that as special of the moment as it is for us to feel, that it is special in a way for them to feel our presence with them. Some people may not think about that. They may put the gods too far up above humanity and mankind, which is fair. They are sacred. They are gods. They have the powers. They have things that are not the same as what we do. And we have powers as well. We have things that we can do. And, not to again compare ourselves to the gods, as it were, but I can't help but think that there are times when the exchanges that are done between the profane and the sacred leave an impact on both sides of the veil, as it were, So yeah, man, I hope that a lot of different things that we talked about on today's podcast, and we still got plenty of other things to talk about in the next few episodes and stuff of season 3. Going to be, I think, I haven't decided yet how I'm going to break up the seasons. I'm thinking of doing it summer and winter, right? Winter and summer, but since that's the Nordic thing to do, right? They didn't have 4 seasons. They had winter and not winter. And that seems like what it's been like here in Tennessee. There's, we really didn't go from winter to spring to summer. It was like, okay, it's winter and then it's summer and then half winter, and then now it's full summer. Now it's really summer. And then we'll, probably have this on and off until about November when it gets cold again. So I don't know. But anyway, the rambling on now into things that don't matter to you folks out here, regardless of what season, what episode. We're going to keep doing this thing, and try to maybe bring on some more guests. I know I keep saying that, and I've talked about having, Dingo on here. We're just not there yet. But I hope you guys have been enjoying these podcasts. I hope you've been enjoying the other content that I've been posting on the YouTube channel. Don't forget that if you do like what you see and hear, that giving that video or that episode or whatever a thumbs up, favoriting it, sharing it around, engaging with it, letting the algorithm know that this isn't of interest to you, does a lot of good, and it helps, grow this podcast and add to this audience and virtual family, as it were. So I do want to thank all of you for attending today's premiere, and for all the listeners all over the world. Thank you so much. Special thanks to Janet King and M. Darby on Patreon for continuing to be a Jarl and Chieftain tier patron. If you guys want to know more about that and see what the perks are that you get through Patreon, once again, the Linktree link that's posted in the description and show notes of all these podcasts will give you the available to, it'll give you the option to click on that Patreon link along with other things, social media, merchandise, donations, the works. All right. So check it all out when you have time. I hope to see you at Bloat here in a couple of days if you're in the area. I will definitely try to see about maybe shooting some content while we're there. Don't know if I'll have enough service to go live, but I'll definitely do my best to maybe film some content and talk to some people and get some faces here on not the podcast, but the YouTube channel. So we'll see how it all will work out. But in the meantime, thank you to you all. Hail to you all. And until we see each other again, may the gods continue to look upon you and notice you, and may your ancestors always walk with you and smile upon you. Thank you all.